3 million pages, 2,000 videos, 180,000 images, all released by the United States government in January 2026. And after all of it, not one powerful man has been charged. Not one. A Goldman Sachs executive resigned. A Harvard president resigned. A royal family member is under criminal investigation. A cabinet member's name is in the files, and the government looked at all 3 million pages and said, "There is nothing here to prosecute." Nothing. So either the most powerful men in the world are completely innocent, or the system protecting them is more powerful than the files exposing them. Stay with me, because this story does not end where they told you it ended. Jeffrey Epstein was not famous. He was not a politician. He was not a celebrity. He was a math teacher from Brooklyn who somehow became one of the most connected men on earth. He managed money from some of the wealthiest people in the world. He owned a private island in the Caribbean. He flew world leaders, scientists, royals, and billionaires on his private jet, nicknamed by investigators as the Lolita Express. He hosted dinners attended by presidents and princes. He gave millions of dollars to Harvard, MIT, and other elite universities. And for decades, nobody asked how a math teacher from Brooklyn got all of this. Nobody asked who gave him his money. Nobody asked what he wanted in return for all those private flights and private dinners. The answer to those questions is what 3 million pages are still not fully explaining. Little St. James, a private island in the US Virgin Islands that Epstein owned completely. Among the files released in January 2026 was 14 hours of footage that Epstein recorded himself, showing young women in deeply disturbing situations. But the island was not just a location, it was a system. Investigators found hidden cameras in multiple locations across Epstein's properties in New York, in Florida, and the island. Flight logs from his private jet showed names of some of the most powerful people on earth flying to and from the island repeatedly. And here is the question that no official investigations has fully answered. Why would the most powerful men in the world, presidents, prime ministers, billionaires, keep visiting a private island owned by a man who had already been convicted of soliciting a teenage girl in 2008? What was on that island that kept them coming back, and who was watching when they arrived? Now here is where the files become impossible to ignore. In January and February 2026 alone, a Goldman Sachs chief legal officer resigned after her name appeared 10,000 times in the files. A former US Treasury Secretary and Harvard president resigned from all his university positions. A current US cabinet member's name appeared in connection with a planned visit to Epstein's island. A Norwegian ambassador resigned after her family was left $10 million in Epstein's wealth. These are not French figures. These are people who ran the global financial system, who advised presidents, who shaped international policy. Two-thirds of Americans told CNN in January 2026 that they believe the government is deliberately withholding information about the Epstein's file. And here is the detail that should make every person watching this stop and think. The Department of Justice said the January 2026 release would be the final one, even while admitting that 6 million pages may qualify for release and only 3.5 million have been made public. Half the files still hidden by the same government whose officials appear in the files. August 10th, 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his prison cell. The official verdict: suicide by hanging. He was on suicide watch just 2 weeks before. Then he was mysteriously removed from suicide watch. The cameras outside his cell malfunctioned that night. His 2 guards both fell asleep simultaneously and then falsified their log records. The medical examiner who first examined his body noted injuries more consistent with homicide than suicide. And the man who knew every secret, every name, every detail of what happened on that island died that night before he was scheduled to provide critical testimony. To this day, his death remains one of the most questioned in modern American history, with the released files still not providing a clear answer about what happened that night in the most secure prison in New York City. The files were supposed to give us answers. Instead, they give us 3 million pages and no prosecutions. And a death that the entire world watched and nobody has been held accountable for. So here is where we stand in May 2026. 3 million pages released, 0 powerful men charged, half the files still hidden. The man at the center dead in unclear circumstances, and a government that investigated itself and found nothing worth prosecuting. As of early 2026, only 3 people face criminal investigations connected to the Epstein network: a Norwegian politician, a British royal, and 1 other, while the vast majority of names in the file face no legal consequences whatsoever. The survivors who were abused, many of them as children, watched the entire world read about their suffering, and watched the men connected to that suffering collect their bonuses, give their speeches, and keep their power. The Epstein files are not a story about one man. They are a mirror held up to the most powerful system on earth. And what that mirror shows is this: when power protects power, justice does not reach the top floor. It never has. The only thing that has ever changed that is an informed population that refuses to look away. Think deeper, see wider, understand the world as one. Thank you.